1, 2, 3!
Remember when Rainbow Six was announced and it looked like this? Or when Watch Dogs was announced and it looked like this? But then when they were finally released, they kind of looked like this. Okay, so I may be exaggerating a bit, but Ubisoft do seem to have a habit of producing misleading gameplay reveals. With that in mind, and with a bunch of gameplay and B-roll from a recent press event in hand, I thought it'd be fun to compare the E3 2013 announcement video of The Division with gameplay from a preview build that's very close to the final retail code.
Alright, let's check this out.
Okay, so in this first section of the E3 reveal, we can see there are realistic puddle reflections, lots of rubbish in the streets, and a light snowfall. In this footage from the current Xbox One version, which our features editor Martin Robinson captured, we can see plenty of puddles that accurately reflect what's going on around them, although they don't seem as crisp and detailed as the ones in the E3 reveal. Perhaps this is due to the capture being taken from an Xbox One rather than a high-end PC, or maybe they just had to tone them down for the full release. Whatever the reason, at least it's a big step up from the lazily implemented window reflections in Watch Dogs. Now, I don't have the luxury of comparing the same locations for this video, so I can't be 100% on this, but I think it's safe to say that the amount of detail in the street environments has been drastically lowered in the current build. I mean, just look at the amount of detail in the E3 build. There's huge piles of rubbish littering the sides of the road, and here, a little further on, discarded shopping trolleys in the middle of the street. It looks like a massive disaster has taken place in a crowded city and people just dropped everything and ran. While there are piles of rubbish and discarded items in the current version, these streets just look and feel a lot emptier than they do in the E3 trailer, and the positioning of the debris looks less organic. But perhaps that's just me being overly nitpicky. For this final section, let's look at the snow. The way it floats around as it falls on the Xbox One looks pretty similar to the E3 reveal. Again, I'm comparing the weather from two different locations and times of day, but it doesn't look like there have been any shortcuts made here.
Nick, check your map, see if there's anything in the area.
Right, here's a good look at how the inventory menu worked during the 2013 build. It's all located on the wristwatch, and by selecting World Map, a sizable holographic map appears on the floor, with the character stood in the middle. Fast forward to the present, and the inventory and map have both been subject to changes. For a start, we don't get that cool zoom into the wrist anymore, and instead we're treated to a more conventional type of inventory that takes up the majority of the screen. Map-wise, it starts off similar to the E3 demo, with the map loading around the character, but the real world appears duller in the newest build, while the map in the E3 demo looks extra vibrant compared to the one in the Xbox One version. It's interesting to note as well that in the E3 build, the player marks his waypoint while still in this holographic view, whereas in the current build it looks like you have to transition to a more solid version of the map to place waypoints. Let's take a moment to check out how the heads-up display has changed in the last 2 years. In the E3 reveal, the HUD is attached to the player character, it bobs along with him as he moves and switches sides when the player does. It displays the ammo count, health, and a couple of what I presume are perks at the bottom, while the rest of the squad are listed next to the player stats and also react to player movement. It's also worth noting that there is no mini-map. Meanwhile, on the Xbox One version, the HUD seems a lot more visible, especially the orange health bar. Again, it bobs along following the player's movements, swapping sides when the player does, but in this version the teammates are disconnected from the player stats and always sit on the right-hand side of the screen. There's also a mini-map on the top left of the screen at all times, and a new waypoint marker that looks like it's been lifted directly from the crew. Not exactly a big deal this one, but the design and textures of the police cars have changed since the reveal. Instead of saying NYPD, they now say Police New York City, which is probably just something they had to do for licensing reasons.
Hey guys, what's up? Oh, what's up, Chris? Welcome to the battle, dude.
In this section of the E3 reveal, we see a player join the game who is controlling a drone using a tablet as a second screen. I asked Martin if he saw anything like that in the build he played. He said no, and that he hadn't heard anyone from Ubisoft mention it at the event. I've certainly not heard them speak about the inclusion of second screen content for ages now, and that craze pretty much died out around the same time the hype for Watch Dogs did, so it's probably safe to assume that it's no longer in the game.
Right behind you.
Finally, the players in the E3 demo enter a police station which has a super detailed interior and this map on the wall which the player scans to update his own map. Martin told me he didn't see any of the map scanning stuff while he played, but that's not to say it's not in there. It might be, I guess, but chances are it's not. The interiors in the Xbox version do have a lot of detail to them, but they still look less alive than the interiors in the E3 reveal, which is an odd thing to say about a building covered in blood, but still. The lighting effects in the police station are great, with God rays shining through windows, illuminating smoke and reflecting off smudges on the lens of the over-the-shoulder camera. While these effects are nowhere near as evident on the Xbox One version, they are still in there, just about, and you can catch a glimpse of them in this clip of the squad climbing the stairs in the Lexington Event Centre. So, in conclusion, while it's fairly safe to say that the graphics have been downgraded for the final release, and that some of the UI elements have been changed up completely, the game is still looking pretty damn good, with the meat of what was shown at the E3 reveal still present and correct. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do that thing with the like button so it makes a thumb go up, and consider subscribing for more video gaming goodness from Eurogamer. Goodbye.
Yesterday, I found myself in something of a unique position. Whilst I was at the HQ, the new champion, Jin, was revealed publicly, and that meant I got to meet up with August Browning, the champion's creator, and talk to him about what it's like to reveal a new champion to that many League players. And yeah, we kind of talked through the whole process actually. How do you design a new champion for League of Legends? What is day one in that process?